For as long as I've lived, this city's been under a cloud of pollution. It is so cold here in winter that the power plants must operate continually, discharging a dangerous and disgusting smog over the entire city. But that doesn't stop hundreds of people from moving here to seek their fortune. 1/4 of the population of the whole country is crammed into the capital. Yet, we don't consider ourselves to be urbanites, no. We are still children of the wide open spaces. My country is called Mongolia, a territory of over 580,000 square miles. But we have only 2.5 million people. We Mongols have fought hard for our freedom. Today we enjoy independence, but it took us until 1990 to achieve it. Signs of the Russian occupation of Ulaan Bator still remain. The architecture of the government buildings is totally without charm. The rhythm of some areas of the city are reminiscent of the past. Other areas are noticeably more modern and upbeat. I and other young people love this more modern place. We've adapted very quickly, perhaps too quickly. My name is Tunga. I'm 20 years old. I came to Ulaanbaatar from the country, from Overangai province, to become a journalist. I know it's difficult to find a job in this field, but I love journalism, and I know I'll make it. It isn't easy to live in Ulaanbaatar on the meager savings of a girl from the country. Everything in the city is so expensive. But I get around by using the few old, overcrowded buses. I have a lot of hope, but I admit I'm a little jealous of the city people, some of whom are very rich. It's worth taking the risk to try your luck in the city. There is every opportunity here. In this country, schooling is a major priority, and young people are eager to take advantage of it, especially the girls. They represent more than 65% of the university students. They're intent on studying hard. Regardless of our choice of major, we have to take one specific course. The professor always begins his course by presenting us with a number of strange characters to decipher that keep us busy for at least an hour. The government, in fact, wants to reintroduce the traditional written language of the Mongol people, a language of characters that are written vertically from the top to the bottom of the page. The professor then corrects our work, but uses European writing. And since we also use the Cyrillic characters in Mongolia, passed down to us from the Russians, we have to handle 3 alphabets at once. Some of my classmates can't deal with this exercise. They keep hoping that somehow this written language will be supplanted by Latin characters. We're all beginners at this language thing. So, like the little kids, we spend hours repeating entire sentences, syllable by syllable. It's hard for me, too. Usually, I visit my parents every other month. But this time, I have to rush home because of an emergency. My father had an accident while riding his horse, and my mother asked me to come home. There is only one bus a day, and it leaves around 5 o'clock in the morning. Oh, I dread taking this bus. Getting from one place to another in Mongolia is like going on an expedition. I only need to travel 112 miles, but I won't get home until early afternoon. We are truly children of the wide open spaces. Each time I find myself outside of UB, I'm reminded of how vast our country is. 1,550 miles long by 620 miles wide. Every hour on the hour, the bus driver stops in a village. Well, the village is really just a group of homes built alongside the main road. People have settled here, some living in old salvaged train cars. Others have built their family yurta. We call them gurs. They all try to do a little business with the travelers. Each gur becomes a restaurant. While the husband takes care of the animals, the wife prepares booze, a ravioli-like dish made with sheep's meat. We have just enough time to wash down a dozen or so with a little butter tea, and then we must move on. The Mongolian countryside is magnificent, but it is sparsely populated. There is so much land here that each person could have 4 square miles to himself. A country of horse and cattle breeders. Isolation is the key word here. We see small herds everywhere. The Mongol people love horses, even if they no longer serve their original purpose. They are a memento of Mongolia's past, when the Mongols ruled the world, thanks to these horses, and to Ghenghis Khan, king of the universe.
Ghenghis Khan. His real name was Temujin. He amassed the greatest empire the world has ever known. In 1189, at 27 years of age, he became Ghenghis Khan, king of the universe. He accomplished the unimaginable. He united the Mongol tribes and set about to conquer the world. Thanks to the speed of Mongol horses, his army was unstoppable. And by the time he died, in 1227, Ghenghis Khan and his hordes had managed to dominate a territory that stretched from the China Sea to the Caspian Sea. He made his capital in Karakorum. His son, Ogedei Khan, expanded his father's conquests to include Hungary and Poland. 50 years later, Genghis' grandson, Kubilai Khan, began the conquest of southern Asia. He established Peking as the capital and created a dynasty that reigned all over China for more than 100 years. Marco Polo spent 17 years in his court. News from his empire reached the great Khan in a matter of days via a network of courier horsemen. The Mongol hordes then turned their attention towards the Middle East. In 1260, they overran Jerusalem before the Crusaders. In 1265, they had reached Greece and Bulgaria. In 1270, they were in Hong Kong. In 1275 in Beijing, and by 1285 they had captured Hanoi and Saigon. The Mongol Empire was at the zenith of its power. It was also nearing its demise. The Chinese, seizing the opportunity, overthrew their Mongol captors in 1368 and founded the Ming dynasty. This event marked the end of the glory of the Mongols, forever.
This pole surmounting a pillar of stones is an obu. An obu is always placed on the top. Animists claim it wards off evil spirits. Buddhists always pass it on the left side. At times, it's even used as a marker for a bus stop. I arrive at my destination. Well, almost. There's no village nor bus stop near my parents' house. I still have another 2.5 miles to go on foot to get there. The peace and quiet, the essence of my entire childhood. Not a movement. And the cold. It can be a little harrowing sometimes. The first to sense my arrival are my dogs. My little brother understood their excitement right away and unhitched a horse to come and meet me. However, with my platform shoes and my tight jeans, it's not going to be easy getting into the saddle, but I have to do it. Oh no, I've ripped my jeans. Right away, I sense how gloomy the house must be. Mother greets me and tells me about Dad's accident. He fell from his horse, and his boot got tangled in the stirrup, and then the horse fled. Dad was forced to spend the whole night outside. It was -10 degrees, and his toes froze. Still, he was lucky. Riders found him in the morning. It's a miracle the wolves didn't get him. The house hasn't changed. 88 beams support the felled roof, the same suitcases piled on one another, the same furniture stacked ready to be moved in the spring, the same family photos of a trip abroad, to China or Russia, the same objects in their same place around the room. Whenever I come here, I feel as if time has stood still. The house is full of people. Besides my 3 sisters and my little brother, there's my uncle who has set up his ger near ours for the winter. He's come to lend a hand after the accident. My grandmother lives with him, and sensing our nervousness, she tries to make a little conversation. It's my job to make dinner. I'm preparing booze. The recipe is simple. You roll out a little dough to make pancakes, and then you stuff them with sheep's meat and boil them. My 3 sisters are going to school. They stick to their studies. They don't want to live in the country, and they really hope to find a job in town. My little brother, though, hardly ever goes to school. Dad says he needs him to help at home, so he doesn't have too much choice. It's not easy for a family to make a living in the country. Dad has a hard time making ends meet. He didn't always raise sheep. 20 years ago, my parents lived in Gobi, a region even more impoverished than this one. Dad used to raise camels. He would rent them out for caravans or breeders to help move their camps. Camels aren't very nice animals. Try catching one. You have to chase it all over the place, and then there's no guarantee you'll ever win. Once you do catch it, you have to put a bit in its mouth and get it down on all 4s. Breeders ride their camels bareback. They make do with a small carpet that they weave into the hairs between the animal's 2 humps. Riding a camel may look easy, But you have to be careful. The animal can bite. And when you're sitting on it, you have to make it obey. And that's next to impossible. They do whatever they like. And when you do manage to capture the beast, you still have to round up the other camels. They're never fettered, so that they're able to graze. But a herd can range up to almost 20 miles during the night. My dad practiced this trade for 10 years, but he didn't earn enough money for us to live. And then, in the same year, he lost his father, his mother, and a brother. He believed in fate, so he sold his camels and we moved here. Since then, everything had been fine, until his accident. The first chore each morning is picking up the animal droppings. We use them for fuel, since there are very few forests in the region. In winter, the droppings are frozen, and there's very little odor. The same can't be said about summer. This morning, it's my turn to let out the sheep. We keep them fenced in at night with the cows. The wolves could polish off half the flock in a single evening. On the other hand, our horses are able to defend themselves. We tend more than 700 head of sheep. That doesn't mean our family is rich. In Mongolia, we figure it takes a minimum of 400 sheep for a family to survive. That's exactly the number we own. The rest of our flock belongs to the UB Police Department. In this way, they have a cheap meat source for their canteen, and in compensation, we keep the skins. This extra income enabled us to buy a new car last month. But because of his accident, my poor father hasn't even driven it yet. I enjoy riding horses, but I certainly don't want to live in the country or get married here. Dad always says that living here gives you a sense of security, that to succeed in UB is too difficult for a girl from the country. But I really want to become a journalist. Well, we'll see. Dad sends some friends to round up his horses. Oh, he loves his horses. But he hardly ever sees them. They're always miles away. The boys are going to have a difficult time locating them, and an even harder time herding them. They take along their lassos, attached to long poles that are used to guide the more stubborn stallions. Those poor boys are going to freeze out there. Mother is busy finishing a new coat for my brother. We call this coat a dell. It's made from 4 pieces of sheepskin stitched inside a durable fabric. Boys' coats have only one adornment, loops on the shoulders and under the arms. A car drives up to our ger. In Mongolia, travelers always stop to pay their respects to the occupants. The hosts offer tea, food, and they're hospitable to the guests' desires. Here, winter has created customs that no one wishes to change. The traveler is preparing a card trick for my sister. He places 10 cards on a stool and asks her to turn 3 of them around. He'll then tell her which 3 cards she picked. She doesn't believe it, but she tries anyway. He turns around, and in the blink of an eye, points to the 3 cards. My mother is sure it's a trick, but my sister is dumbfounded. The dell is ready. Time to try it on. The sleeves are disproportionately long, but Mom hasn't made a silly mistake. The extra long sleeves help keep one's hands warm when working outside. My brother even wears the traditional belt that's wound around and around and is finely tied at the waist. Twirling like a top, my brother loses his balance and wipes his nose in his sleeve. The horses return. Without saying a word, Dad got dressed, put on his new Dell and felt boots, and went out to see his horses arrive. The sight of them has done him more good than any medication. The boys spend the whole day rounding up the horses. A Mongol family just isn't a Mongol family without its horses. We have about 100 or so, and they are all ours. The boys parade the animals back and forth in front of the house. Dad follows them. He counts them. He stares at his stallions lovingly. He looks at the mares and discovers foals he's never seen before. Apparently, all 7 stallions are here. They keep their mares at a distance from each other, and there's no fighting among the groups. So everything is going well. The boys worked very hard today. Now they want to have some fun. Most of the young horses have never been ridden. Now's a great time to start their education. Each boy has his own method of capturing a foal. That one has caught one by surprise. But his lasso is very long and he's all alone. He could be running in circles for quite a while. My cousin adopts a strongman approach, charges into the herd and lassos any colt. Sometimes it works. Today he was lucky. Another cousin is more organized. He attempts to drive the colt toward another rider. His plan doesn't work this time. But it's Dad who offers us a real surprise. He is riding the same horse that threw him. He gives advice, he smiles. He enjoys seeing the boys. My 2 cousins have caught a young horse. The horses here are small but very strong. They're also very timid. Just the right touch is needed to slide a saddle on its back. What happens next depends on the skill of the rider. In this game, the boys are truly gifted. They treat themselves to a wonderful afternoon of rodeo. The animals are tired, and we women are frozen. Mom teases Dad. I think she said, "You love to be pampered," but Dad didn't get the joke. Night is about to fall. The horses are tired, and the riders themselves are exhausted. But they still have to make the journey home. Only one person hasn't grown weary running after the beasts, my little brother. He doesn't yet have the strength to capture the horses, but he has met his match. Oh no, he's kept his new coat on. Mom isn't going to be very pleased. The riders have gone, and so have all the horses. Dad has put on his pajamas again and now wears a happier expression on his face. As for me, I bury myself in my books. My uncle whiles away the hours playing jacks. My sister serves tea. Mom has resumed her work. She restitches the new coat that my little brother has already torn. Back to the humdrum routine of daily life. Tomorrow, I go back to UB. I know Mom is worried about my exam, but she doesn't say anything.
Tunga! Tunga!
Time to go. Every time I leave, Dad gives me pocket money, cheese, and meat. He's convinced that I won't make it, and he's afraid I'll die of hunger. I tell him he's being ridiculous, but he really helps me out. I've got on my jeans and my platform shoes again. Never ideal for riding a horse. I know that Mom is going to throw some milk at my back to protect me. After I'm gone, their everyday life will resume. A quiet life. Very quiet. Too quiet. At least at UB, young people can look forward to a future. Well, they should. I really don't know. I'll soon find out. In UB, I live with an aunt in a gur on the outskirts of town. Newcomers set up their gurs wherever possible and put up makeshift fences. My aunt has done the same. It is often minus 10 degrees in UB. To keep warm, people use animal droppings or coal-burning stoves, and that pollutes the atmosphere even more. The most difficult thing is finding water. There are so few watering holes. People have to lug around tin jugs all day long just to live decently. Our leaders would like the country to quickly catch up to modern times and ways, but it's not that simple. Modernism, fine, but the Mongols don't want to lose their culture. They're always very keen on reading and history. Lenin and the gang that followed him haven't managed to get us to forget the past, but they have left the country in a lamentable state. Polluting factories, hardly any roads, no infrastructure. And we're the ones left to sort out all these problems. At the university, more than 65% of the students are girls. Boys prefer finding work immediately. That doesn't help their studies, nor their training for the future. My favorite course by far is journalism. The professor is young and motivates us in the field. There are girls in my class who come from the city, and then there are the others. I know this makes a difference. Their families are rich thanks to businesses or to good jobs with the government. But this won't stop me from achieving my goal. The professor gives me an exercise for my next test. Mongolia since Ghenghis Khan's rule. I have a lot to do if I want to find an interesting angle. Mongolia is both Asia and Europe. Our emperors bequeathed to us the experience of the outside world, and our country's culture has been influenced by the Western nations over the course of the centuries. Everyone wants the best from the two sides. Maybe it's too much, but we can dream. Some of my friends eat with chopsticks in restaurants, others with knives and forks. It's like that with a lot of things here. Wrestling is the national sport of Mongolia. From elementary school through university, boys practice the sport intensely. Later, the ones who go on to become professional wrestlers acquire impressive prestige. Monk Nasson is a champion from my province, and I decided to do a paper on him. It's entitled Elephant, which is a high rank in the discipline. Despite a serious accident to the shoulder while fighting, Monk Nasson has resumed training. Yet, he knows he will never again reach his former level. So now he fights for pleasure and with the hope of participating in the tournament that begins tomorrow in the UB auditorium. UB is simmering with excitement this morning. The inauguration of the first sports stadium takes place today. All the fans are ready to steal or bribe their way in to attend the event. For the first time ever, wrestlers will have to get used to fighting indoors and on mats. The auditorium can hold 3,000 people, but many more have managed to fight their way in today. The event is being held in the presence of the President and the Prime Minister, who are both great fans of the sport. The elephants and the lions from all over the country have identified themselves. Even Butter Dan, the champion of champions, unbeaten for 10 years, is present. The tournament begins with the arrival of the official flags that are placed on a plinth. They symbolize the moment of victory. Everyone is hoping to win, even Monk Nasson, the champion from my province. For the moment, though, he's a little nervous. The wrestlers don the traditional costume, leather shorts and long-sleeved open shirt tied at the waist. Monk Nasson puts on one pair of boots over another pair and ties them snugly with a lace. Mongolian wrestling is a sport that dates back 1,000 years. Monks are invited to bless both participants and fighters. At the conclusion of the benediction, the contest may finally begin. 256 wrestlers are eligible for competition. Imitating the flight of an eagle, the first wrestlers enter the ring. They approach one another and bow toward those who will be both their judges and advisors during the course of the match. Another group does the same, and each contestant leaves his cap with the referee before performing the eagle ritual. The tournament is held by direct elimination. To win, a wrestler must pin the back or knee of his opponent to the ground. There is no weight category nor time limit. To win, you must be cunning, quick, and know how to finish fast. Or heavy, strong, and experienced. The first few rounds are child's play for the champions who are able to choose their first opponents. The winners accomplish their turn of the flagpoles in imitating the flight of the eagle before having to select their next opponent. And it's finally Monk Nason's turn. He performs the flight of the eagle alone, without forgetting to say an optimistic word to his referee. At the end of 10 seconds, Monk Nason is in a winning position, but his attack ends up in a useless block that doesn't faze his opponent. Monk Nason is ranked around the middle of the contestants. The other wrestler is therefore about as strong as he is. The round lasts for 10 minutes. The referee slaps him on the backside to encourage him. Monk Nason is getting tired, and his shoulder is starting to ache. 20 minutes later, Monk Nason is still in the fight. And in a final effort, he upsets his opponent. He is happy, and although he's very tired, he is still able to perform his eagle flight around the pole. In the second round, all eyes are on the giant wrestler who stands 7'8". He watches the other matches, not showing the slightest concern for his dwarfed opponent, who's trying to throw him off balance. Monk Nason's second opponent is unranked. Young and tough, he easily won his first fight. Monk Nason tries to impress him, but the young wrestler is very determined. In less than 2 minutes, the young fighter knocks down the elephant from my province, eliminating him. As the young winner is of lower rank than Monk Nason, he must still show him respect and pass under his wing. Well, he tries. The hero from my province was really hoping to participate in the third and fourth of the 6 rounds of the competition. Instead, Monk Nason watches the victory of Butter Dan, the lion unbeaten for 10 years, on television at home with his family. In 10 years, life has completely changed in UB. Almost every month, a new nightclub opens. Before independence, everyone used to wear the traditional coat. Nowadays, the young people all wear jeans and sweaters. The traditional Mongol society is falling apart at the seams little by little. The younger generations no longer wish to lag behind the West. Our parents don't always agree, but they don't really have a choice. I want to work in television. I don't know anyone in television, but I have an opportunity to introduce myself. UBTV is the capital station. The TV hosts seem friendly, and I think they'll be able to help me get ready for my test. UBTV is producing a New Year's Eve special. The stars and singers line up on the set to record their recent hits. I don't know much about television, but apparently, despite its lack of resources, UBTV manages to produce some entertaining shows. 3 or 4 times a week, spectators are glued to their seats. The assistant director greets me in a very casual manner. I'm surprised and thrilled by his kindness. He tells me that a journalist has interviewed a High Lama on the subject of Buddhism in Mongolia. He checks it out. It's fine. I can see the cassette right away. So let's go. The editor explains that the interview is with the Lama from the monastery of Karakoram, the former capital of Ghenghis Khan. He talks about the survival of Buddhism.
In the 12th century, the belief was animism, and people sought the advice of shamans. But the people needed another religion. First, to put an end to the law of the lords and feudalism. Next, shamanism was a crude and rude practice. A more sophisticated belief was needed. While he was alive, Ghenghis Khan had sent a letter to the Dalai Lama. He respectfully requested that he, Ghenghis Khan, rule over Tibet, but asked the Dalai Lama to be his representative in Tibet. This was how Buddhism was first introduced into Mongolia. Buddhism became the main religion in the country when the third Dalai Lama came to Mongolia around 1536. Altan Khan then had converted to Buddhism and outlawed barbaric practices such as a ritual of human sacrifice and owning of slaves.
I have notes on the subject. At this time, the Mongol society became very tolerant, very open and sophisticated. Almost every religion was practiced in Karakoram.
At the time of the succession of Gede, the son of Genghis, the yellow hat monks arrived in Mongolia to teach. A little later, the red hat monks brought with them Tibetan Lamaism, which explains the particular kind of Buddhism practiced here.
I don't believe my eyes. Jargalma, UBTV's star, has come into the studio. She reads the nightly news. She's great. She comes over to see what's going on and to lend me a hand, just like that.
Over the years, Mongolia has been influenced by 3 giants: China, Manchuria, and Russia. Buddhism has at least succeeded in saving 2 things: the written language and tradition.
Jargalma explains that the Lama is talking about recent history. It's the turning point of the interview. I must take this into account in my paper.
At the beginning of the 20th century, Russia and Manchu China shared the country between them. There were no overt signs of Buddhism, but it was practiced discreetly. Thanks to Buddhism, the language, documents, and precious objects were preserved. The monk hid them at the risk of their lives. With Lenin's death in the 1920s and the arrival of Stalin, the plan was to destroy the temples and reduce the number of monks by all possible means. The temples were razed to the ground. Thousands of monks were deported. Horrible massacres took place. 1937 was an especially gruesome year. All the great lamas were assassinated. It cannot be said that Buddhism was banned. It simply had no voice. This lasted until 1944, and then things calmed down. The country authorities wanted to keep a bit of Mongol tradition. It was a new beginning. Buddhism was neither in temples nor in monasteries, but it was still in the hearts of an entire people.
300 years ago, 25% of the population were monks. Today, only a few remain. The largest monastery is Eder Nzuu in Karakoram, and it only shelters about 100 monks. It is difficult to imagine the significance of Buddhism in the Mongolia of today. An overwhelming majority declare themselves Buddhists. Yet compared to the theoretical number of believers, the monasteries are quite small and empty, and there are too few monks to be truly representative of the community. In his interview, the Lama speaks about objects and documents that have been saved by the monks. In fact, only some paintings, a few precious objects, and very few books remain. What were once great libraries are now no more than display shelves. However, little by little, families are making their way back to the monasteries.
Buddhism accepts this new situation. It has saved itself indeed. But the road will be long. The most erudite monks are gone. There are hardly any temple left, and no money.
The past has left an ineffable mark on the entire country. Mongolia's destiny has not been in the hands of its people for 600 years. In Karakoram, as elsewhere, the small towns seem abandoned, their people idle. Alcoholism has taken its toll everywhere. Everyone here would like to fight to change this. But how much time will it take to erase 700 years of occupation and 70 years of communist frustration? Is our future in such provincial towns or in Ulaanbaatar? Jargalma has stayed until the end of the film. She gives me some pointers before getting back to her work. She's really great. Even in UB, believers were able to pray only in small temples. The larger temples had been converted into museums or auditoriums, or had simply been abandoned. Yet, an important event has been underway for the past year: the restoration of the great Buddha of Ganden and reconstruction of the temple and its monastery. Buddhism is rediscovering its grandeur in Mongolia. There is also a revival of the faith that believers place in the Lord who looks in all directions. The years pass quickly, even for a young girl of 20. But as I have more and more confidence in Him, I find that I have more and more confidence in myself. I am certain that the children of the wide open spaces will once again resurrect their true identity.